to undertake a 2-hour experience of eye-opening, mind-expanding, revealing common sense discussion for the common sense citizen. Strap yourself in, put your trays in the upright position, remove dentures and loose jewelry, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and come along for the ride. It is time for the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Powerhouse Station WCRN 830, and our affiliates, and streaming on the TuneIn app. It's Joe time, baby.
All right, folks. Good morning, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. That's right. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and wow, it is the 17th of April, and waking up yesterday morning, I had to really question, were we in April? It was a pleasant snowstorm in the middle of April. That was cool. 508-871-7000. Join the conversation. Good morning, Russ.
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
I am great. I'm great. How are you doing? Bright and early? Here we are.
It's a good thing I didn't put away the snow brush after yesterday's snow. And driving my wife to her doctor's appointment in Spencer, the snowflakes were good-sized snowflakes coming down. And also it looked like the Mass Pike.
Well, they come in all sizes and race, color, different. Oh, you're talking about actual snowflakes?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They say no two are alike. I don't know how true that is, but
I think they're all pretty much on the same political spectrum. But yeah, it was a fun surprise. I remember years ago there was actually. Do you remember the blizzard on April 1st? And this was a lot of years ago, and I'd actually just taken a job running a radio station in Pawtucket. And it was actually the original flagship station of the Paw Sox, which is now the Woo Sox. And I'd met with the owner of the station. I was coming back on that day on 495, and it was whiteout, complete whiteout. And I was like, I can't get back to, Worcester. I can't get back to Framingham. It's just this. I can't see. I can barely see the end of the hood of the car. And I was going to just kind of try to find the exit, get off somewhere, down that Franklin area or whatever. And all of a sudden, the Stop and Shop Peapod truck, I remember Peapod, I guess that's the delivery service. Yes. This guy comes up 495 screaming. I have no idea how he can even tell. You can't even see the lines in the road. So I have no idea where the road is and where grass is. But he just barreling up 495. So I jumped in his wake, literally right behind the truck, and it was just opening the almost like probably NASCAR, right? You just pull in the wake and let him drag me up. And I figured if he drives off the highway, I follow him off the highway. And I did that all the way up to 9. And when I realized we got to Route 9, I broke off, and I was able to just crawl and get my way back to Worcester. But it was a scary, scary thing. And of course, we weren't expecting it then. But of course, I was a kid in Blizzard of '78, right? How old were you in '78?
78, I was 13, but at the time I was still living in upstate New York, where I was born and raised. But I heard about the blizzard because I had an uncle who was a dispatcher for the Leicester Police Department.
Got it.
And he ended up catching a ride on the back of a snowmobile, even though he didn't live too far from the police station, where normally, obviously, you drive yourself to work, but he had to catch a ride on the back of a snowmobile.
They were doing that. My father is a police officer. I think a lot of people know that. And they were confiscating, I guess that's the word you say, but they were going around and people were lending them their snowmobiles. So the police that's how they had to get around. My father came home just for a quick shower and to see everybody, grab a cup of coffee with their family and back out. But that's how he got home from Sherburne to Natick on a ski mobile. And we were off at school forever, in the snowbanks were 5-6 feet high. And I lived up the street from the elementary school, and the snowdrifts were so big we could just walk up onto the roof. Right, that's how they were. It was crazy. And as we were kids, I'm trying to figure out how old. Well, I was 12, maybe 11, 12 years old.
Now, did you have the cold temperatures at that time besides the snow from the blizzard? Because where I lived, we had the cold temperatures because I remember shoveling my driveway. And,
Oh, you mean extreme cold,
and,
like
and,
ridiculous.
and without wind chill. And without wind chill, it was like minus 28. I mean, it was
Honestly,
extremely cold.
See, I don't really remember. I think when you were a kid, you tolerate the cold better anyway, and we didn't care. I mean, our fingers could have fallen off, and we wouldn't have cared. But it was just the snow. We had the snowball fights going back and forth from yards. It was a winter playland, and it was crazy. And then when we were finally getting back to school, the bus driver, they had to stop at your house, and I was 5 houses up from the school, and he'd stop at the end of the driveway. You know, it was just crazy. But blizzard of 78, I don't know if that would ever happen. I think one of the not the blizzard would, but I think why the blizzard of 78 was so, remembering why we had so much problem is we didn't have the technology to forecast it the way we do today. And I think it was caught by surprise, right? The meteorologists, they weren't saying we're getting 3 feet of snow. Nobody warned us. It was, some snow's coming in, and then it was this incredible blizzard. And today, I think we have much better forecasting abilities, and at least we would have shut down. We would have been prepared for it. But I just police, fire, rescue rather. They were on ski mobiles. That's how you got around. It was crazy. It was crazy. Blizzard 78. Anyway, folks, I think hopefully this is done for the season where we're looking at spring, and I was very. I saw the thing, and my first thought is because I just got that antique convertible, right? And I haven't actually driven it yet because I have it in a mechanic. He's doing a few things to it, right? And I want him to change out the brakes and stuff like that. So I was like, well, thank goodness. It didn't bother me as much that I haven't got to drive it yet. All right, folks, some housekeeping. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Our text line open and available at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. And, of course, you can also text Joe on the radio at gmail.com, and that's just used for the text line. If you want to reach the show by email, you do that with JoeMShow at gmail.com. Or call the office at 508-603-9778, 508-603-9778 to the office. And we're live streaming. Of course, we're on our here AM 830, AM 730 in the western part of the state. We're live streaming on the TuneIn app. And, of course, you just punch in WCRN, and you can take us anywhere. Don't forget, you can tell Alexa, hey, play WCRN. She'll do it. Like I say, no questions asked. Also, check us out on our social media platforms. All of them are at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. So if you're on one of the platforms and you're not sure, just try that. It's going to be it. But we're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Rumble, and Parler. And Parler's handicapped these days, and that's the whole conversation we've had about that. But 508-871-7000 lines open and available at the moment. Coming up at 7 o'clock, Dr. Larry Fedawar will join us, as he does usually about this time every month, around the 3rd Saturday of the month. He does pop in, and we'll be talking to him maybe about a little bit about court packing and SCOTUS and some other things. But before I get into much anything else, I think we have to have let's have this conversation about the rashes shootings. Although, are they really rashes shootings? What's interesting, in Joe Biden yesterday, I don't know if you caught the press conference with the Prime Minister of Japan, and he was asked a question. He kind of took off there. He got a little angry, and he got onto the guns a little bit there. And again, I don't know why you need a gun that can hold 100 rounds. That's not really something that happens, Joe. But the point is, again, he goes after it. And you have to remember, the overall answer to this is, again, it is not. And I don't know how many times, every time that there's a shooting, the left immediately right after the guns. But not the criminals with the guns, just the gun owners, because they're the only ones that are paying attention to the law, folks. And if you remember back when he was vice president, Senator Cruz, there was the Grassley-Cruz bill, and it really went after the criminals. went after the bad guys, the felons, and he sat on his hands. And Schumer, they killed it. They filibustered against it. And it would have done some good against going after the bad guys, but it seems they don't want to fix that problem because they just want to disarm you. They want that Second Amendment gone. And that's why the court packing is extremely important. Now, I know Nancy Pelosi said what she said, but unlike when it was tried before, and, it was the Democrats' own party in Congress who said, no, this has gone too far. It's Congress cheering it on now. Now, when Joe came out and he said, oh, I'm going to form this 180-day commission to look into this. First of all, I think it's insulting to the court, right? It's intimidating. I mean, it's co-equal branches of government. And they're not out of control. They're just really, really aggravated that President Trump was able to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices, which is a lot for any president to do in one term. They think that Merrick Garland, that it was stolen from him. And their answer is to change the rules and punish everyone, punish you. And if we have a court that is liberal and activist, and that tends when I know you're going to get pushback on this, but what happens when Democrats appoint justices? The litmus test there is, are you going to find in favor of our narrative? Not, are you a constitutionalist? Not, are you going to judge on what's in front of you and what the blueprints of the country says? Whereas the Republicans tend to do that, and Trump certainly did. So they want judges that are going to behave. And they so much as did that by threatening the court and telling them that you need to find in our favor, you need to behave, or we will come after you. And this is what's happening. The day after that President Biden announces this commission, what happens? They have 11:30. They have the press conference on the stairs of the Supreme Court. Now, I have a few things that I need to get to on this shooting that deals with Deontay Wright. And by the way, Brandon Scott Hall, right? Now, this is a 19-year-old kid there in Indiana. He was the one behind these 8 dead, 5 injured. And then we have an interesting thing, right? In Oregon, I don't know if you knew this, right? Because it didn't get a lot of press coverage because the victim of a police shooting in Friday morning in Oregon was a white man in his 30s, and they haven't identified him yet. And the policy, the Oregonian, Oregonian, the publication out there. Their policy is that they do not publish the race of the victim unless it's relevant. Well, they often, but see, this is asinine rule because they never pay attention to it. Because if the victim's black, they put it out there to say, "Oh, it's a racial issue," and this is the problem with shootings, right? It's always a racial issue, whether it is or isn't. By the virtue of being a person of color, it becomes racism. And before you pop your head off about this is a serious question. I'm asking you, pick one of these, and I don't. When we discuss a particular shooting, if we're discussing Deontay Wright, right? I don't want to start bringing this case in Carolina and that one in Ohio. No, just stick to the facts of the shooting or the incident that we're talking about. But I'm saying, to pick one of these and then explain to me at what point it becomes a racial issue. But the Oregonian put out that this victim was white. But why? The reason for doing it was to send the signal, don't start riots, or peaceful protests. You don't have to gather. You don't have to get upset with the police shooting because they only shot a white guy. That was the reason for putting out the victim's race so that there wasn't a gathering, there wasn't a riot, and people storming the police station and yelling because it was a white guy. So don't worry about it. You don't have to do anything. Police shootings, when they shoot a white guy, we don't have to protest. Think about that for a moment. Think about that. This is where we're at, folks. So we'll talk about this a little bit, but 508-871-7000. Let me go to the phones first. We've got some lines filled here. So, first call in the morning. Mark in Worcester. Good morning, Mark. Up nice and early. You look marvelous.
You look marvelous as well. I don't feel marvelous seeing what's happening to this country. I'm going to tell you that. I don't feel marvelous. But I'm sorry I have to call you up and vent. But who am I going to call? Ghostbusters?
Nope.
Or my congressional representative, Jim McGovern.
Oh yeah, Jim's waiting for your call, Mark.
Oh yeah. I'm better off calling Ghostbusters than calling him, ain't I?
Who you gonna call? Yeah. Who you gonna call? Well,
Jim
this
McGovern.
is what it's for. I mean, the show's here for this, Mark.
Who are you gonna call? Jim McGovern. Yeah, right.
That's a jingle. Well,
Yeah,
this is the purpose of the show. The purpose of the show, when this was started with Mike Wade and I, like 14 years ago, it was to do exactly that. So people had a chance to say.
How's Mike doing, anyways?
Mike's good. He was down in Florida for a while. I think he's back. He hasn't called me yet, but I talked to him about a month ago, and he was headed down with his wife for about a month, and then.
Why does he just stay down there? What is he, a glutton for punishment, and he wants to keep coming to Massachusetts?
No.
I don't get it.
Well, he's got homes up here and businesses and property.
Oh,
and
okay. All right.
But he is. But I did say, when you come back up, because he was coming in a little bit before the election, and I said, why don't you keep that up? And he says, yeah, I'll do that. So. Hopefully I'll have him back in, and I think that will give me, honestly, Mark, that's going to say, hey, Mike, why don't you take Sunday? It'll give me a couple Sundays off here and there, probably. So, yeah.
Well, I hope he does it. I hope he does it because he didn't mince words. He had something to say. He said it, and he didn't care who heard it. He didn't care if the president heard it. If he had something to say, he said it. That's what I liked about Mike.
Yeah.
Anyways, the reason I called up was Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
Mitch the Squish McConnell.
Yeah.
The country's going to hell in a handbasket. He's supposed to be the Senate minority leader. He's supposed to be the spokesperson for the opposition party. And what's he doing? He's sitting with a dunce cap in the corner, twiddling his thumb while the country goes to hell in a handbasket. And guys like Chuck Schumer and Jerry Nadler packed the Supreme Court, running amok, and you don't hear a peep out of this loser. What is up with him?
Well, he did at least. He went on the floor and he called. He did call him out. I don't know if you didn't watch that, but you got to watch the the Senate floor a lot. But he did come out and he did say, "Hey, this is just a power grab, a raw power grab, and it's asinine." So he did at least take a stand on the floor. I didn't see him in public. I didn't see a press conference, but I saw him do the right thing at least on the Senate floor, Mark, which is something. But
what's he going to do about it?
What's he going to do about it? And that's what are we going to do about it? And this is part of what I was going to get into this morning. Is you guys? This is not something we can sit here and watch a slow motion train wreck. You have got to be vocal about this. You have to call your representatives. I know what you're thinking. You're all rolling your eyes, but you have to call. And it doesn't have to be your rep, by the way. Call your rep. Call your rep. Call your senator. Call Markey. Call Warren's office. Call them. But you can call other senators and make sure they understand that this is not tolerated. Because if the court does go to 13, if they do under Biden, right, and they're doing this at lightning speed. You thought Trump got a lot of that. Why? First of all, Joe Biden is just not orchestrating. He's not the architect here, and they know that they're facing a serious challenge to. They have like the thinnest margin for the control of the House right now than they've had in a very, very long time, probably ever. So they know that 2022 they could lose the House. and the Senate maybe, but probably definitely the House. And then it's not going to be rubber stamping and pushing this through. So they're really pushing to get this stuff done. They've introduced the bill to study, making D.C. a state, Puerto Rico a state, right? They figure they're going to pick up either 2 or 4 more senators automatically right there. This is to solidify the Democratic Party as the party in control, and basically, and now with they'll push through H.R. 1. And if they get control of the national elections and nationalize them, folks, forget it. A Republican will never be elected.
Everybody knows that. But the point I'm trying to make is that when, he has a job now that Chuck Schumer had. When Chuck Schumer was a Senate minority leader, endless
challenges,
challenges, hearings, impeachment hearings. I mean, it went on and on and on with Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
For 4 years. Endless. Ad infinitum. But this guy here, this Mr. Squish, I call him, he's doing nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to step up to the plate because he has no interest in it. He just doesn't have the stones to get this done, and I don't know what the hell we're going to do as a country. Have a good one, man.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Always a good call. Yeah, and everybody does know that. But the problem is, what are we going to do about it? We do know this. We know how dangerous H.R. 1 would be. We know how dangerous it's going to be. And I'm not talking about the political parties here. The Republican Party, as far as I'm concerned, the Republicans in D.C., are shameful to call themselves Republican. They're just loaded with rhinos down there. I'm talking about conservatives, constitutionalists, the law and order people of us, the people who say, geez, it's against the law to enter the country illegally. We have a sovereign border. But it seems to be that's totally ignored. And if you start to have a conversation about something like that, it's as if you have to really go back and say, okay, before we have this debate about immigration and the border, do you actually understand that we have a sovereign border? Do you get that? So if the court is packed and it's tilted, forget about it. This is huge. What the Democrats, they're being pushed by the left, and we have a president who is easily manipulated and pulled. Now, some things that he's saying are right on track with what he said in the campaign, like the guns. Are you coming after the guns? Bingo. That was Joe's response. But where is he in a lot of these other things? I mean, I thought that 180-day commission was maybe his way of appeasing the left and the real progressives, the tribe and all that, right? But then the next day, no, Joe, thanks for doing that, but we're going to fast track this because we need to get this all done in a year and a half. Think about it. The midterm elections for this presidential term, the 2022 elections, are going to start ramping up very shortly. And like I said, there's such a thin margin there that, and every day, right? I filled up the truck the other day, $84. I honestly don't ever remember paying that much to fill up my truck since I've owned it. It's just, and by the time that elections come in November of 2022, we will have felt the pain of not being energy independent. God knows where we will be in geopolitics between Russia, China, the China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, India. Because China's doing to the India border. So we have a lot going on. And where will we be? We're going to be paying a heck of a lot more in taxes. And where will inflation be in a year from now? 508-871-7000. Let me go to Scott in Florida. Good morning, Scott. I assume you're on the TuneIn app,
Yes,
or do you listen on Facebook?
I use it on the mobile app just barely. I'm
Got
not
it.
very
On
computer
TuneIn.
literate.
Got it.
But anyway, how are you this morning? Before I begin?
I'm good. Hey, it's summer and we got slush on the ground. So what can I say? Now you're down there and probably what's it 75 down there?
Yesterday was 90. Don't ask me. It gets too hot. It's like yesterday was like if you didn't have a calendar, you would think that it was July or August. It really gets horrible.
Huh.
And they say sunshine every day. Yeah, but after a while, it's like if you had lobster every day, a steak every day, you get sick and tired of it.
Yeah.
And the weather, there's no seasons down here.
What part? How far down in Florida are you? What part?
Miami.
You're all right. So you're really down there.
Way down by the equator. Yeah, but this country's not doing well, Mr. Mangiacotti. And I called.
Your buddy passed away, huh?
Yeah, Bernie Madoff died, and no one's talking about it. And I think it's appropriate because he was such a bellwether, symbolic of how phony our stock market is. And make no mistake about it, it's not a question of if the market's going to crash, but when. But anyway, I'll just make it short and sweet. For your listeners who don't know that Bernie Madoff, he died this past Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. He was the Ponzi king. In his notorious career, he swindled $65 billion plus in the largest Ponzi scheme in United States history. He left many investors literally destitute.
Yeah.
His own son committed suicide.
Yeah. Wasn't there always a question about how much the family knew about everything?
Oh, yeah.
They always claimed they didn't, though, right? I mean, they claimed they just thought Dad had a very legitimate, successful business, and maybe they did. Maybe they didn't know the Ponzi scheme part of it. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. He knew. They knew. They had an inkling. It's like Sergeant Schultz in I know nothing, see nothing, hear nothing. If you don't want to know anything, you don't want to see anything, you can also do that too.
Yeah.
And they knew. And the son would not have committed suicide if they were intricately involved. And the wife, I don't know where she is now, but she's shunned. If I were her, I would get the hell out of New York City.
I think they did, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's going under her maiden name or something. But we're against the clock, Scott.
I know. Can you hold me over?
You can hold over, but I got to take the break, folks. Here in the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. Stay tuned for Out with Joe, and I think we're going to check in with a finder forever home for Teddy's friends. Stick with us here. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti here, and I have recently purged and refreshed with new furniture and, most importantly, a new bed. We spend about a third of our life on our mattresses, and it's so vital we have the right one, and we don't break the bank to do that. I first bought a mattress from the big store the brothers used to own, and a power base that moved the head and feet, and then I met John, and I checked out his showroom at 50 Main Street in Ashland and online at boxdropmiddlesex.com, and ended up with a better mattress, a power base that also heats and massages, all for less than half of what I was going to spend at the other place. Box Drop is a discount mattress store, and John specializes in clearance and closeouts, and he buys directly from the manufacturer with a low overhead and just family employees, passing the savings on to you, and you can see it reflected in the price every day. Click boxdropmiddlesex.com or call John on his cell. This is his cell number, 508-579-9303. That's 508-579-9303. And you can find John on Facebook at Box Drop Middlesex. John loves referrals, and this is the best referral I've given so far this year. Dropboxmiddlesex.com.
This is Sean Burke, President of the Licensed Private Detectives Association of Massachusetts, asking you to visit us at lpdam.org when you think you need a private investigator. Don't let your emotions negatively affect your future. Get your answers through a Massachusetts licensed private investigator. Get the facts without risking your credibility by unknowingly committing a criminal offense. You need a license to perform investigations in Massachusetts. What are some types of work that requires a license? Any type of surveillance, interviewing someone for a third party, background and asset checks, are just a few examples. For more on this, visit us at lpdm.org and tune into AM 830 WCRN Sunday mornings at 7:30 for case files from the LPDM or anytime at lpdmcasefiles.com.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers one-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877 Drive Ed. Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click Levante'sAutoschool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. 877 Drive Ed.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
It's time to go out with Joe.
Welcome to Out with Joe. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. This Out with Joe is brought to you by Nothing Bundt Cakes, located in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. On today's Out with Joe, we'll be discussing a recent trend in fast food chains, the fried chicken sandwich. And for this, we turn to special contributor to Out with Joe, Daniel Kropp. Daniel?
Thank you, Joe. The chicken sandwich started with Chick-fil-A's introduction of its legendary chicken sandwich in 1964. Fast forward to 2019, when Popeyes introduced a chicken sandwich to compete in the market that Chick-fil-A had controlled for over 50 years. This new sandwich quickly became a fast food phenomenon. In the following 2 years, fast food competitors such as KFC, McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's introduced their own chicken sandwiches to join this competition. This iconic fried chicken sandwich generally consists of a piece of fried chicken sandwiched in a bun with pickles and a mayo-based sauce. Every one of these sandwiches costs between $5 and $6. The average customer has many options to choose from when searching for a fried chicken sandwich today, and it's important that each customer knows which of these products are amazing and which just missed the mark. It's not very surprising that the best chicken sandwiches belong to Chick-fil-A and Popeyes, the trendsetters for this wave. Compared to their competitors, the quality of the chicken and the overall construction of the sandwich is unrivaled. These sandwiches are easily the top tier of the fast food fried chicken sandwich. The middle tier contains KFC, Wendy's, and Burger King. These sandwiches are lower quality than their competitors, be it less satisfying in texture or inferior chicken. However, these sandwiches are not entirely terrible. I had a pretty high expectation for KFC, since fried chicken is really their thing, but I found that their chicken just did not translate to sandwich form as well as I'd hoped. However, it was better than both Wendy's and Burger King, just not good enough to play with the varsity league of fried chicken sandwiches. Coming in dead last is the McDonald's chicken sandwich. I made the mistake of trying this once, and I regretted it. The chicken was undercooked, small, and unsatisfying. The construction was sloppy. The entire sandwich was just disappointing. McDonald's is well known for the dollar menu and its low prices, but with this sandwich costing just as much as its competitors, its quality is just dreadful. In conclusion, I believe that burger places should stick to burgers, and chicken places should stick to chicken. For a good chicken sandwich, go to a restaurant known for chicken.
Thank you, Daniel. For more dining information and news, click outwithjoe.com and follow us on our social media platforms at OutWithJoe. We are suspending the Music Minute for obvious reasons. Support your local musicians. We do. This Out with Joe has been brought to you by Nothing Bundt Cakes, White City Plaza, Shrewsbury, and on Facebook at Nothing Bundt Cakes, Shrewsbury. Have you heard of the hottest new bakery around? I know you heard about it right here. My friend Al has opened Nothing Bundt Cake in the White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. Nothing Bundt Cake is a bakery chain and is locally owned and operated by my friend Al. They have bundt cakes ranging from bite-sized to tiered, plus platters, candles, and cards. For any occasion, function, or just to have around the house or office, stop by and check them out. Everything is baked from scratch and on site. Nothing beats a sweet surprise. And until you try one of Al's bundt cakes, you haven't tried a real bundt cake. Stop by and ask for Al. Tell him Joe told you to stop by. 98 Boston Turnpike, White City Plaza near Planet Fitness, Shrewsbury, and on Facebook as well, Nothing Bundt Cake, Shrewsbury.
To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Joe Mangiacotti.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the first hour of the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios, from our palatial but not overly ostentatious studios in Westboro, Massachusetts. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Don't forget, you can also text us at 617-297-8388. Coming up at 7 o'clock, Dr. Larry Fedor joins us. We'll get into the court pack in a little bit with him as well. You know, Facebook is at it again, banning politicians again, banning any platform. I mean, it's you would think that they've learned their lesson, right? Now they're banning another New York Post story. It's just, and they come out and they say, oh, maybe this was a mistake. Dorsey said it as far as Twitter goes. Look, the thing about Facebook, Twitter, these platforms, I've said it before, I said it again, first thing we have to do is repeal Section 230. I understand the reason for putting it in. For those, if you listen to the show, I'm sure you understand what I mean by that. But for those of you who are just joining the party, Section 230 was put in place back in the infancy of the Internet, before we really understood. I mean, nobody understood in the 90s, certainly, where we were going to go, that every aspect of our life would be dependent on the Internet, medical, social, businesses, etc., and that we'd have apps for almost everything in the world to do. So Section 230 was put in there for protection so that these companies starting out, Facebook and Twitter, what have you, wouldn't be sued out of existence. They could exist. And they didn't really have to declare. They promised us that they were going to be platforms. But they've taken on such a much larger role. So first thing we need to do is remove the Section 230 protections. They need to decide, am I a publication or am I a platform? If you're a publication, that's fine. You're a publication. And then you have editorial control over your content. But then you have the same responsibilities that the New York Times, the New York Post, the Boston Globe, the Herald, even this radio station has. So, fine. But if you don't want to have those responsibilities, meaning i.e. the liability of being sued like everyone else in the media can be, then you need to be the platform. And if you're the platform, you do not exercise any editorial control. Now, I've said before that it comes to a point where they are more of a utility. And I know the argument is always that, oh, they're private companies. They're private companies. You do whatever they want. I get that. But look, we know, I mean, we have bridges. Bridges are private, right? You can own a bridge and you can charge a toll. But the court has held up over and over again, you cannot decide who gets to cross the bridge. Once you're open to the public, and these platforms are open to the public, and once you're open to the public, then just because you don't like the cut of their jib, you don't like who they are or what their opinions are, private company or not, I don't think that should be within your domain. And look what happened when companies like Parler tried to give, in a free market enterprise, an alternative. AWS, Amazon Web Services, literally pulled the plug on them. So it happens. All right, 508-871-7000. Before the break, actually, Scott was talking, and I know you're very upset about Barry Madoff's passing, and I'm sure you'll hold a vigil for a while.
No, not at all.
And I know you have a shrine to him in your house.
No,
I say in jest, Scott, I know you have your issues with Madoff, and look, the bottom line on that is what he did was extremely calculated, and it was just horrible. He devastated people's lives. He stole money from widows and orphans, and he just left people, who worked their entire lives. He cleaned them out. And it's horrible. And he was right where he belonged to be. We should have been. I say there's always got to be some due diligence also on your part. And he got, look, a Ponzi scheme works when you are making it too good to pass up. And I'm sorry, but I got to go back to mom and dad telling me that. If it sounds too good to be true, Joe, it isn't. Especially my dad. He was a police officer. He was skeptical about everything. And that's how he did it. I mean, he'd say, he was consistently getting double-digit returns. That doesn't happen in the wild, right? That doesn't happen in nature. And if a guy who can say, I can get you back 16% every quarter, every month, it doesn't happen. It doesn't make sense. There's got to be a little bit there. I mean, but the problem there is, right, Scott, people just pension funds, and people just put the money in.
They were greedy. They were greedy,
and they put the money in, and they didn't pay attention.
They didn't pay attention, and they didn't do their due diligence. But that's easier said than done. But anyway, only a fraction of the people ever got their money back. Some did. A lot of them have never been fully restored, and some of the investors committed suicide. But the point that I'm making is that he is the poster boy for white collar crime, and his cohort, George Soros, also is a common denominator because he shorted the Bank of England about over a decade ago or so. He pocketed billions of dollars. And then we know that Soros is behind the Antifa and the Black Lives Matter. But Mr. Mangiacotti, I'm Jewish, and Soros and Madoff, both bad images for the race. And crying. I heard somebody on a talk show the other day say, Madoff, whatever, Jewish, whatever. It is important if they don't want you to talk about Madoff being Jewish, then the Jews need to rein in anti-Semitism themselves by not having. I know you can't control everyone, but what I'm saying is Madoff was a horror show, and he's an anti-Semite extreme. And Soros is 90.
Yeah.
He's another evil character. He's gonna meet the Lord one day too, and they're both going to answer.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, Scott. Right? These guys are going to meet their maker someday. They're going to have to answer to a higher authority and all of this. As far as Madoff, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like you're saying that the Jewish community needs to rein him in, or police, or be embarrassed. Yeah. He happens to be Jewish. But I don't know if that's the thing. I mean, he's a criminal. He's a bad apple. Jewish, not Jewish. That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter about that. But I understand what you're saying. That it doesn't look good. But that's not the thing. He wasn't out there committing crimes as a Jewish man. He was out there. You want to know something?
Yeah. This opened up a wound for me. I'll just say this and then go. When Lehman Brothers, you remember when Lehman Brothers went under, right?
Oh yeah.
I was swindled out of $190,000 when Richard Fold. He was a CEO of Lehman Brothers. The guy must be a billionaire. He's living in Greenwich, Connecticut, at a mansion. I never got a dime, not a dime of that money. And my folks went to their graves, never getting a dime back. And my father was a tough guy. He worked hard. And I remember on September 15, 2008, when our broker from Morgan Stanley, called and said, the money's gone in the common stock. And my dad was saying, "What do you mean?" And says, "Turn on the TV. It's gone or whatever." And my father turned to my mom and me, and I'll never forget it. And he cried and he said, Sandra, it's like a death in the family. It's like someone died. And I never forget me. I'll never forgive him for my folks went to their grave, never got a dime. And as far as Mr. Madoff, thousands of investors ruined. His own son committed suicide, and wherever he's going in the next life, trust me, he's going to hell. And so is Soros very soon. And they're a black stain on American history.
Well, I get that, Scott. I mean, and I know because you have that personal loss there. And yeah, I mean, it's devastating because I'm sorry that happened to your parents. And it sounds like your father worked very hard to accumulate that nest egg so that he could take care of your mother and live reasonably well in his twilight years. I get that. And that's why Madoff and all the other white crime criminals like this should be treated for what they just are. I mean, it's not the same thing as pulling a gun in someone's face or something, but the result, I mean, it's just as bad of what they do to these people and stealing the money. Thank you for the call, Scott. Appreciate it. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Don't forget, as we broadcast here from our Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios, you can also text us at 617-297-8388. Ken in Bolton, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Joe. Well, I guess with all that's going on, it could be better. But
always, yeah.
We march on, and unfortunately, I think the whirlwind is about to face us. We think this past week has been a whirlwind.
Yeah. There's a lot of fronts, Ken.
Trial? Excuse me?
There's a lot of fronts. We've got the assault, we've got the assault on the court happening now. We've got the assault on police. Portland's still in riots every night. We've got what's going on in Brookline Center. We're waiting for Chavanez's verdict to come back and what's going to happen there. They're boarding up. I mean, there's just a lot of plates in the air. We're fighting a lot of fronts here. We've got international issues that directly affect the health and well-being of this nation. We've got the internal turmoil going on. We've China telling us, by the way, I don't know if people caught this, by the way. China declared this past week that we're equal now. They've decided that the United States and China are now equals. Regardless of the fact that, they still they have concentration camps for the Uyghurs, and they're harvesting organs, and they have no civil rights, but we're equals. It's been decided. So we've got that to deal with. A lot of fronts going on. I'm sorry, Ken. What's on your mind?
Well, I suspect that China has declared us equal because, as bad as they are, our representative to the UN and others are telling the world how awful we are. So they say, "Hey, if you're awful, we're at the same level."
Yeah. And don't make a mistake about it, folks. See, China loves the internal turmoil. What's going on in this country is perfect because think about this for a moment. Now, this goes for not just China, but the Soviet Union, Iran for that matter. When we're showing the unrest right now, we got remember the police chief, right? Who's fired now in Brookline Heights because Skippy there, the 12-year-old mayor, the guy, Ken, for 2 days, I'm yelling at the TV, dude, take the baseball cap off. This is serious grown-up stuff, right? And here the guy is doing this chief, 27 years in the department, 5 years as chief, and he says the riot, and then one of these alternative media people yell, "It wasn't a riot." And I love the fact that he goes, "It was a riot." Right? This new thing, Ken, let's just change the meaning of words. Right? Democrats are doing it right now. Infrastructure can mean whatever they want it to mean. I grew up. I think you grew up. I think Russ grew up. We all grew up. We understood infrastructure to be infrastructure. Our roads, our bridges, those things. That's what we talked about. Nope, they're going to change that. They're going to change the meaning of the court. They're going to change the meaning of words. Right? We can't call that a riot. It's a protest. But better than that, it's a peaceful protest. And then you got the Jamoke on CNN, Cuomo saying, where is it written that protests have to be peaceful? In the Constitution, you Jamoke. Right there in the Constitution. You have the right for peaceful assembly. It's crazy. Crazy what's going on. And this new Orwellian method of changing our words. I brought it up the other day. Remember when Amy Coney Barrett was in the middle of the Senate hearing? And they asked her because she wrote something in the LGBTQ community. And Webster, in real time, while she's in the Senate hearing, changes the meaning of a word so that she came out looking bad. Our real world today, Ken, puts George Orwell to shame. He couldn't even, you thought he was brilliant with his assessment of the future. I don't think he even imagined how bad it is or it would be.
Well, Joe, there's a simple answer. If they're going to apply false labels, we need to apply honest labels about them. They call themselves progressives, do they not?
They do.
They are not progressives. They're destructionists.
Agreed.
That's all they're after.
Isn't that a weird word, Ken? Progressive, right? What exactly does that mean? What do you mean when you say I'm a progressive? It means I'm for progress?
Right, but you're only supposed to assume that the person only wants good because they have the word progress in their word.
Mm-hmm.
It's a false label. Label them what they are, destructionist.
Yeah.
They don't want the United States of America. They want the mob rule of states of America. And that's what we're about to head into next week.
Well, that's like the with legislation, right? I think there should be something where it has to be some truth in naming legislation. That we saw this with the COVID relief package, and 9% of that trillions of dollars actually had to do with COVID. Now, this infrastructure package, actually 6%, actually deals with money directly to build bridges and roads and that kind of thing. And there's no truth in that. I mean, the Affordable Care Act was another beauty. There was nothing affordable about it, and there wasn't a lot of care going on because that was mostly dealing with power structure, tax increases, increasing the agents in the IRS. I mean, it had nothing to do with getting into the real health care issues. So, yeah, I'm all for it. That's what we've been doing here, Kim, calling it for what it is. Putting the real names on stuff. And you're right. Progressive, that's supposed to be a great thing to be? Why? Because up from where I sit, every time I hear the term progressive, it's associated with horrible legislation or horrible ideas, or a net result being some of my freedoms and liberties being eroded in some way or another. I don't understand how that can be progressive or for progress.
And it's also amazing how they analyze the events of this past week, whether it be what happened in Brooklyn Center or whether it be what happened in Chicago just a couple nights ago. I mean, literally, what would have been our thought, or your parents' thought, 30 years ago, if you had a 13-year-old running the streets at 2 in the morning with a gun?
Yeah.
Well,
so
that's the police.
Let's talk about that for a moment, because this isn't going to go away anytime soon. So there's a couple things on this. First of all, I did not know until yesterday that this what's his name? Jesus, it's the 14, is it 14-year-old? The 13-year-old, that he's actually developmentally disabled. I did not know that.
So you just mentioned it.
Right. So that actually, not for nothing, folks, but it changed a little bit for me, because I was like, wait a minute. Where the H-double hockey sticks are the parents? I had a problem with a 13-year-old being out in the streets in the middle of the night to begin with. But I thought, maybe it's one of those situations where the gang scooped up the kid and the parents have no control. They don't know where he's at any time. But where are you, Mom, Dad? Does he have a mom, Dad? Who is responsible for this kid? Why is he out? First of all, the schools should be open. Maybe if he had to get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to get ready for school, he would be in bed. But let's put a pin in that for a moment. Who's watching him, and how does a 13-year-old have a gun? So now you take this, so this is out there. So now you've got to deal, and when you're a judge or prosecutor, and when you're a police officer, you deal with the facts that are in front of you. You have these police respond to shots fired. Let's put yourself in the police. I'm responding to an incident where I know there's guns involved because there's shots fired. They get there, and this kid is firing another guy in his 20s. They take off. The officer that follows this kid goes after him. He doesn't know anything. He has no idea what his psychological evaluation is. He doesn't know his politics. He doesn't know how old he is. He doesn't know his race, really. The kid had a hoodie on and a hat and all this stuff. He doesn't know anything except this person was just firing a gun. He has a gun. I'm chasing him down an alley. And in a split second, he has to deal with this kid turning. Now, he doesn't know if he's turning to fire on him or what. And he has to make a split-second decision. And now all of us are going to sit back and watch freeze frame in slow motion video and analyze it from the comfort of our homes or our offices or what have you. And instantly another black man, and I think he's half black and half white or something. But the point is, I go back to this, Ken. Stop with that. Stop with that. Please tell me where this became racial. This is by the virtue of being a person of color, it's automatic racism. This is why I had said about the Oregonian, I think that's what they call the publication, whose policy is not to put race unless it's relevant. Well, they put, when it's a black victim, they always put it's a black person or person of color so that everybody knows they need to riot and rally now. This time, on Friday, they put out that, don't worry, folks, it's a guy, we don't even identify the guy. He's just a white man in his 30s. So don't crank up the riot machine and the protest machine because it's a white guy. So don't, we're not going to, it's a police shooting, but because it's a white guy, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Where, the police it's okay when they shoot. That's what I'm saying, man. What is it? Why is it just by the virtue of being a person of color, they invoke, and this is the media's fault. This is the media's fault. They just wait around.
Have you seen the audio and visual part of this story as he was shot together?
Yeah, of the 13-year-old running down. He dived right behind the thing. Now, the fence, he gets rid of it. But the split second before that...
Whoa. No, Joe. Follow Dan Bongino's video yesterday. Literally, they have, Andy No had broke it down by frame, where you actually see the 13-year-old sideways, okay, his left shoulder to the officer, right?
Yeah, and he has the gun still in the hand at that point.
Behind his back, in his hand.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He threw the gun down a split second before the officer fired.
No. What happened is there's that split shot, then there's the shot, followed by him spinning around with the gun out of his hands and the two hands up.
I think we just said the same thing.
But the key thing is, it would appear that the split second that he was shot, he had the gun in his hand. And it dropped, obviously, from being shot. And his hand spun up. And that's what the media caught.
Right.
To send a exact opposite message as to the truth.
Here's the thing. The video I saw, and from what I understood, is that he had the gun literally a split second before the officer shot. And it doesn't matter. The point is, it does matter. But what I'm saying is that officer is chasing a person who, and then there's gun residue, right, that is on his hands. So he was firing the gun. He did fire the gun. This officer is chasing a person. He doesn't know the age. He doesn't know anything about him. He just saw firing the gun. He knows he has the gun, and he spins around to him. He doesn't stop with his hands up in the air and wait for instruction. When he spins around, that officer in a split section, kill or be killed. That's what he's faced with. And whether he had the gun half a second before he shot him or a full second before he shot him, he had the gun. Yeah, when the officer shot him, the gun may not have been in his hand, but you've got
That's not the case, though.
Pardon me?
Literally, you hear the sound of the shot before his hands go up.
All right. I'll go look at that video. I mean, I'll look at it. Unfortunately, we're yeah, I'll go to the Bongino thing. But I'm against it. With 7 o'clock, I have to break. Ken, thank you for the call so much. Folks, we're going to be back with Dr. Larry Fedorov from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester.
7 o'clock. Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti from the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, talk radio is the immune system to the partisan, bias, political rhetoric attacking us on a daily basis. Get inoculated. The Joe Mangiacotti Show is your vaccine. Join me weekend mornings, 6 to 8.
If you were to ask any retiree in a word, they would tell you that retirement is all about income. Income in retirement is a permission slip to enjoy life. Income provides the freedom to spend money each month knowing that more will arrive next month and the month after that. As important as it is to accumulate assets for your retirement, it's equally, if not more important, to maximize the income being generated from your assets. My name is Jerry Doherty, and my radio program, Making Money Last, has been heard right here on WCRN. Well, do you know if your retirement income is as high as it could be? Are you living off less than you should be? Well, I'd like to offer you a complimentary review to answer that very question. Simply call my office at 877-772-1776. I'm conveniently located right on Route 9 in Westboro. Again, my number is 877-772-1776. Let's increase your income today.
I want to tell you what Cantiani Insurance has been able to do for me and Teddy. We stopped in to see Paul Sr. and the great staff at 318 Plantation Street. They've been handling my car and business insurance for years. Teddy was making his way around the office, and they let me know. They now offer pet insurance. For a fraction of what one visit to the vet was for Teddy, they could cover him for a whole year. I know you treat your furry family members like any other family member, and as well as I do Teddy. The professional staff at Cantiani has been providing courteous service for over 40 years, with integrity and personalized service, making sure that your insurance actually protects you and your family. With 2 locations, the 318 Plantation Street in Worcester and East Douglas Insurance Agency, located at 306 Main Street in Douglas. For home, auto, business insurance, and now pet insurance, click CantianiAgency.com or call 508-791-2088. 508-791-2088.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second hour of the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Dropbox Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Don't forget, we're also have our text line up and running at 617-297-8388. And you can follow us on TuneIn, so you can take us anywhere. Just punch in WCRN, and there we are. You can tell Alexa, hey, play WCRN, and she'll do that. No questions asked. And we're live streaming on our Facebook page at Joe Mangi Show. Now, there is a camera in the studio, but the important thing is the audio is running. And, of course, you can find us on all social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. All right, joining us, as he usually does, around the third Saturday of the month, Dr. Larry Fedewa. Good morning, Dr. Larry.
Good morning.
You look wonderful. Bright and cheery. How's the horses doing?
Well, we have one recovering and two that are fine.
Awesome. We have got quite a mess on our hands here, Dr. Larry. I was saying in hour one, we have a lot of fronts going on, but let's focus in right now. I wanted to talk about the Supreme Court and this move to do the court packing, and Joe Biden So he comes out and he says, announces this 180-day commission to study the number of justices, as well as, by the way, on how they decide what cases to take, and pretty much are saying in how you decide things. I mean, here's a co-equal branch of government kind of coming after another equal branch of government, and you've got the third equal branch of government who threatened the court before about finding the way we want you to find or we'll come after you, and now they're kind of doing it. But the next day, he announces this, and I can be honest with you, Dr. Larry, when Biden announced that, I didn't like it. I was got a little concerned about it, but I kind of said, I think maybe he's just trying to placate those real far left progressives, right? He's going to do this commission and make them happy, and we won't hear much about this for a while. But then the very next day, there's a press conference. And did you see the press conference? Did you see how they described this, by the way?
I saw the highlights.
Oh.
I can't listen to that guy too long.
Oh, the way they come at it. I mean, they just lie, and again, where they, I don't know where they get. It's like living a bizarro world, right, from the Superman comics. What reality are you watching? Now, we know that they're very upset because they feel that Merrick Garland, that was stolen. And then they don't think at least two of Trump's appointees are even legitimate.
Well, I think you could make that case for about half of Biden's appointees. I mean, the new Secretary of Defense, for example, is on the record as being very upset about the reality of the military and the need to have a military. I mean, this whole thing is so absurd that it's if it weren't so serious, it would be laughable.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing of this is it is so absurd. It's so crazy that the stuff being said and coming out, except you have to remember this is serious business we're talking about. It's first of all, the safety of our nation. When you start talking about the military, I mean, you put the guy who doesn't even think we should have a military in that position. It's what are you thinking?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Look, well, he did the same thing with the chief of the Border Patrol, right? He grabbed the Tucson or whatever it is, whatever city it is, they were down there. The guy, and he was such a Trump basher in the Trump administration, speaking out against this. And you got to look at that guy, and you got to say, you're a sheriff, right? You understand the concept of law and order. You understand the concept of enforcing laws, that they're there for a reason. You understand that our border is a real thing and that we're a sovereign nation. Or what is it? What is it that you're going to do? What are you going to order these men and women? I mean, I feel sorry for the rank and file, Dr. Larry, of the Border Patrol. I mean, they're like, this is not what we signed up for.
Well, if they're not careful, they're not going to have any Border Patrol. The morale is so low that these people are so discouraged that it's just it's almost you have to feel sorry for them, and retirements and non replacements. Recruiting is down. Retirements and resignations are up, and recruiting is down. The same thing as law enforcement throughout the entire country. It's we're pretty soon we're going to be a lawless country just because there's nobody there to enforce the law.
Yep. Well, this is true, and I've been talking about that. The fact that these retirements are up, they're taking it. Even this Amy Porter, I mean, she had 26 years in with the taser issue, and she could retire, but this is going to ruin her life. But we have the retirements up. We have the recruit rate, the classes. I mean, there was New York had like 12 people or something in a class recently. Because who wants to go into this profession as they're defunding them, as there are, look at what they're doing, right? You know the broken windows theory, right? And I know a lot of people debate that, but you know what I'm talking about, right? That the broken window theory.
Yeah, that's an old one.
It's an old one, but I'm applying it to go back a year when you had the New York police officers, right? People were throwing water on them, bottles of water, balloons, cursing, right? Doing all, and they weren't allowed to do anything. They took it. They had to take it because the politicians, right, who I think every one of them put them in a uniform and a badge and make them walk the street, and then you give those same policies out. But that, put a pin in there for a moment. But I'm liking it to that because they weren't allowed to do anything. So when you didn't step in and you didn't nip it in the bud when you assaulted a police officer like that, now we've got them with a pig on a stick. Look at what they're doing to police, right? They're showing up, whether it is in Brooklyn Center or Portland, with cans of soup, frozen bottles of water, or whatever, unfortunately, and they're hucking at it. I mean, there is this jamoke on CNN the other night, in the CNN anchor, man on the street thing. What are you doing? Well, we're just here peacefully protesting. And I got this can of soup here for my family. This is for my family. And he's winking at the camera. I don't care whatever cutesy thing you put on this kid. You showed up armed with every intention to cause bodily harm. And I think it should be treated that way. So allowing that abuse of the police officers a year ago, all we've seen is it elevate because we didn't take care of the broken windows in the abandoned building when it started. Now it's okay to assault police officers in the open.
Well, and kill them.
And kill them.
All over the country.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is
a situation.
But you know what happens, Dr. Larry, right? When it comes to that point, because now we have the jamokes in Congress, whether it's the squad or what have you, and telling us that simultaneously the police are awful. Right now they're going to do the not police aren't going to put. Was it California? I apologize, folks, for not remember the city this is in. They're going to do this. They're not going to have police pull you over. They're going to have a civilian force of some type that pulls cars over because they're because this whole thing with Delonte Wright was because of expired tags. But the part about that, folks, right, Dr. Larry, that they don't talk about. So let's talk about it for a second. It's a traffic thing. So they run it like they do every one of us. And what comes back? That there's a bench warrant for this kid, that he fled the police before, and that he had an unlicensed pistol, and that he had just had an aggravated assault and walked out of the court. So there's a bench warrant, which is arrest on sight, which the police have to arrest him. Not to arrest him is police negligence at this point. You have to arrest the guy. First of all, it's a bad guy. He fled the police. He has guns he shouldn't have. Right? I thought we wanted to take guns away from. Well, let's take them away from the bad people first, not the law-abiding citizens who follow the law. So they're telling us that we're going to take the police away because it doesn't work. Right? It's all inherently racism. Military and police don't work. And I'll get to my theory about nationalizing police in a minute. But they tell us that at the same time, they tell us you cannot protect yourself, you cannot arm yourself, and there's no reason for you to have a gun. Which I go back to, then why do we have fire extinguishers? We have a fire department. Why do we have fire extinguishers? We don't need fire extinguishers, right? We don't need sprinkler systems. We have a fire department. Why? Same thing. Because it takes the police a certain number of minutes to respond to anything, and now they're not responding to anything because they don't have the numbers. But who's always going to be protected, Dr. Larry? The wealthy and the politicians who have private security on our dime, right? These council people in Portland and these other cities where they have all these riots and problems, they're spending $4,500 a day per councilor for private security. Well, they take the police away from the rest of us.
Well, it's I guess the real operative question now is what's next? Are these outrageous movements of government officials and policies going to be sufficiently understood by the electorate to cause a complete reversal of votes in the next election? Or are the current people going to pass HR and SR1 so that there never is another legitimate election? Or are the Republicans going to come storming back like they did in 1994? The real question is how much impact is all of this bad news and bad policy and dangerous judgment? How much is that going to be understood and reacted to by the American public? And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, so we had the Georgia law, which, in my estimation, is a perfectly fine law. It's something that was needed. The problem I have with it is it allows these voter drop boxes, which I think is just a horrible, horrible idea. And I'm sorry, folks, but if we know what election days are, and we know what day to go, and I'm okay with the early voting to a degree, because things happen. And not everybody can get to the polls on a Tuesday, even if they're open from 7 to 7. And I'm okay. I have no problem with starting voting on a Saturday. You can vote Saturday, Sunday, and Monday and Tuesday. I'm fine with all that. I don't think voting should be months long, and I think we should know the answer that night. So I don't like the Dropbox thing. But that aside, they actually have 17 days of early voting, 19 if you invoke the option of the 2 Sundays. So that's 19 days. The only big thing that the issue is they ask for voter ID, which, by the way, majority of black people in all the surveys there, they want it too. It makes sense. We need an ID for everything else, and our votes are very valuable. Why would it not be protected? So they move it, the MLB comes in, Dr. Larry, they move it to Colorado that has less days early voting and a voter ID required as well. So how do you get there? What's the wisdom? Meanwhile, you take it from a city with 53 or 54% black population to a 70-something percent white with only 9% blacks in Colorado. And in Atlanta, 30% of businesses being affected are black owned. And you move it to basically a Wonder Bread package. I mean, you might as well move it to the bread, packaging of a Wonder Bread loaf. I mean, that's what Colorado is. It's just, it doesn't make any sense, right? Coke is trying to step this back a little bit now, right? They're kind of trying to walk back their rhetoric. Now there's other states who want to do this. And do you think the corporations might have learned the lessons to stay the heck out of this? Because we had 37 states, or I think it's 37 states that have voter ID law. Because H.R. 1 wipes them all out. H.R. 1 makes it illegal to have voter ID. Now, why would you want to do that, Dr. Lee? What is it why would you want to make it illegal to ask for your ID when you claim to be a person and vote?
Well, the reason is that if you think that those votes are all going to go your way, and you want continued power. I mean, it's a clear power grab. They're trying to make the Democrat Party the party of choice for the next 50 years.
But see, I don't think it's not the party of choice, because if they let real elections without any ballot harvesting, asking for ID, and truly doing one person, one vote, and one vote for those who are entitled to it, meaning
they don't want that,
right? Because if they had that, it wouldn't be choice. That's the problem. I think that they don't think that they will win elections on their policies, on their issues. So like everything else that they're doing, right? We're seeing them do it. They don't think that they're going to win court cases based on the Constitution. So they need to do what? Change the rules of the court.
Yeah, well, they don't even believe that. I mean, they don't want to have any contested elections. They just want it to be like the Soviet Union. You know, when they have an election, everybody knows who's going to win. Because nobody else dares to vote against them.
Yeah, which is why when I say, HR comes through, elections will be ordained. It won't be an election, right? They'll be determined ahead of time. And we saw this. And I think we saw this with this election. I think because you think back, I look back, because I was awake and functioning during the primaries in 2020. And you watch that, week there, the New Hampshire primary. Joe Biden leaves New Hampshire early because he's going to get smoked up there. Goes down to Carolina. Claiborne comes out. They do that whole, all of a sudden there's a rally and Joe Biden's the guy. But the phone calls were made that weekend, right? Amy Klobuchar drops out. Kamala Harris drops out. Pete Buttigieg. They all drop out and they clear it for Joe Biden. And I don't think anyone else would have been able to pull it off. But there's an invisible hand here, and I think that hand isn't, it's invisible, but I think we know who it is, and I think it's Barack Obama who's kind of controlling this. I mean, he came out, and actually, I don't know if we can pull the clip or not, but he was talking in an interview, and he was asked, hey, if you could legally do it, like if you could have a third term, if that was a possibility, would you do it? He said, well, I would do it if I could just be the guy with the policies. If I could be in a room somewhere and talking into a microphone and somebody else is up there, in the public eye and doing all that, out there on the stage and all that, but me talking through them, yeah, I would do it that way. Well, isn't that what we have right now? Because I don't think all these decisions are Joe Biden's decisions, including Kamala Harris, Dr. Larry. Remember, this is the woman who during the primaries called him a racist and a rapist. Would you pick her for your running mate if that was the assault you were under during the primary debates?
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't think that Barack Obama is the true hidden hand here. My theory is a little bit more convoluted than that.
You think it's more of a commission of people?
All my life, I've been a opponent of so-called conspiracy theorists. I'm afraid I'm turning into one, but
yeah, but when it's true, it's not you're not a nut job when it's actually true.
My view is what I call the unholy alliance.
Right.
And I think I've talked about that before. I really believe that we're headed toward a feudalism of the 21st century, which is for people that are not familiar with that term. Think of the United Kingdom or England. Think of England in the 19th century and most of the 20th century, where all the land and all the major assets of the country were owned by the nobility, and everybody else worked or directly or indirectly for them. And they called all the shots. They ran the government. they ran the country. And if you were born into that group, you automatically had a say in the running of the country, and if you weren't, you had no chance. Well, I think that's where we're headed, and I think it's not an aristocracy of birth; it's an aristocracy of wealth. And I believe that there is a if you start this whole theory from the economic point of view, that we have a what I call a discrepancy of wealth, and that is that most of the assets, 80% of the assets of the United States, increasingly are in the hands of 1% of all the people. And that group of people has so much wealth that they basically, I don't want to monopolize your show, Joe, but if I can give maybe just a minute or two to tell you what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you've got about 2.5 minutes. We can hold it over the break, but go ahead. The floor is yours, Dr. Larry.
Well, if you have so much money that that money is essentially not even a factor in your thinking anymore. You're not going to buy 5,000 suits if you can only wear one at a time, and you're not going to buy 5,000 automobiles if you can only drive one at a time. So you start looking for other things to buy. And what is there? You decide that you start buying assets, and the assets are passive income, and eventually you start controlling a whole lot of assets. Which means now what? Now you have the money. You just have more money. So what do you start looking for now? Most of these guys start looking for power, because there's no more incentive to do anything in retail or whatever. And if you start getting a bunch of these guys together, you start controlling. Not in this country, most of that wealth recently has come from electronics, from the digital age, and they control the communication of computers and social media, and then they start buying newspapers and broadcasting companies, and pretty soon they own about 90% of the communications assets in the country. So then they decide, what are you going to do with that? Well, let's go buy a political party. So they go and buy a political party, and then the next thing they start looking for is, how do we control if we control the government, the federal government, then let's start working on trying to get the states, and I think that they use the corona thing as a stalking horse for. They don't really care about public health. What they really care about is using it to control the American people.
Dr. Larry, that's a good point to just pause, because we're going to break for the 7:30 break, and let's pick this up on the other side, because it's the corona aspect and the pandemic and the SIA. That is a great angle to bring into this, folks. All right, you're listening to the Joe Mangiacotti Show, the Saturday edition here from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. Our guest is Dr. Larry Fedewa. Our line is 508-871-7000 to join the conversation, 508-871-7000. Stick with us. I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
Find a forever home for Teddy's friends. Brought to you by Cantiani Insurance Group with locations at 318 Plantation Street and East Douglas Insurance at 306 Main Street, Douglas, and anytime at CantianiAgency.com. This week's candidate comes to us from Bay Path Humane Society of Hopkinton. Tired of high maintenance and the quarantine has you down? Well, Murphy may be the guy for you. This 40-pound, 4-year-old island boy is a bit of a couch potato, so he doesn't require a lot of adventures, but rather the opportunity to just relax and be with his person. He is currently in a home with another dog with whom he gets along with, but we feel that he might blossom better in a home where he's the only pet. A quiet adult-only home would be best for Murphy. A neighborhood that is also quiet would be ideal because he can be a bit nervous in new environments. If you think Murphy could be a chill pal for you, check out Teddy Good Pup Facebook page for links, pictures, and more details, or email adopt@baypathhumane.org. Find a forever home is brought to you by the Cantiani Insurance Group with locations at 318 Plantation Street and East Douglas Insurance at 306 Main Street, Douglas. Anytime at 508-791-2088. Good morning and welcome to Handling Change. I'm Joe Mangiacotti along with Heidi Zizza, who joins us this week. The purchase or sale of your home or investment property could be one of the largest challenges you have, and Heidi can help you handle those challenges. Good morning, Heidi.
Good morning, Joe, and thank you for having me on the show today. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, welcome back. I'm always looking forward to the tidbits of information you share with us. And I was thinking this week, since you had mentioned how much of a seller's market it is, that maybe we turn our attention to the buyers and you give a little advice and some tips. If you're a buyer and you're about to start looking, what are some of the things you can do to, make yourself a better candidate, because it is kind of a bidding situation, and the things you should have prepared to go out looking at property in a seller's market?
Well, first of all, you absolutely have to be prepared, and that means having a really strong pre-approval letter. And gone are the days where your pre-approval letter should just match your offer. You should show that you are pre-approved to go over and above, because that's really what you're going to have to do in this market. I haven't had a house go under contract in the last 3 to 4 months that went anywhere even near what the asking price was. In some cases, they're going $100,000 over asking. So you really need to be prepared to go highest and best and prove that you can go to that point. Buyers are ditching every contingency out there right now, and it's really making it tough for some of these buyers, for sure. It is a seller's market.
Expand on that a little bit about the contingencies. When you say they're ditching the contingencies, what does that translate to?
A lot of buyers are saying, we will buy this house as is. We will not even do a home inspection. You pick the closing date. I mean, they're literally giving everything to the seller on a silver platter. A lot of people, depending on your financial situation, I would never recommend doing this unless you were very, very financially secure. But a lot of people are buying houses without even a mortgage contingency because they want to be the winning bid. So those sellers are saying, we're going to take the cleanest deal. No chance for anyone to back out. And if they do, they lose their deposit. So it's really getting kind of cutthroat out there.
So this means going into the bidding or even the looking phase of a house with a pre-qual letter, which means you need to speak to a mortgage broker ahead of time?
You absolutely have to sit down with a mortgage broker ahead of time. You need to let them run your credit. You need to show them some of your W-2s so that they can say in that letter, not only is Joe Mangiacotti pre-approved to buy a house for $500,000, we've already done some of the background on him. We've already run his credit. We've already checked his pay stubs, and we know for sure that not only can he afford $500, but he can afford $600 or $650, whatever the number may be. You've got to show that you are a strong candidate for that house, and you've got to go in with your highest and best. In some instances, they're not even coming back to these people. Could be 27 offers on a house, and they're not even giving you a second chance to bid.
This sounds like it could be very discouraging for a buyer to enter the market. So what do they do in this case? Do they move to an area?
Pray.
They pray. Do they work with someone like yourself to really narrow down the location and the properties to look at? And do you have to, keep that? Chances are it could go for over the asking price when you're setting up the looking, list anyway?
Oh, I prepare people for the fact that, if your maximum is 700, let's not look at everything that's 700. Let's look at things that are 600. Let's look between 600 and 700, because the chances of something that's at 700 going for 700 are slim to none. And if that's your cap, that's not going to work for you. I'm trying to encourage people to expand their town choice a little bit, not say I only want to be in this one town, because with everything being so competitive, you need to have a little bit more on the option list.
Got it. Now, the only saving grace here, Heidi, is that if this is the second house upgrade, as we do, the starter house, and then you upgrade over 1 or 2 times, is they would be making it up on the sale end of their house. But for that first-time buyer, this is an uphill battle.
It is an uphill battle, and I don't see it changing anytime soon right now at all. Nobody is putting their house on the market because what's happening is it's a seller's market. It is. I discuss this with in my own household all the time, being that I'm an empty nester. My husband will say, the prices are so crazy, we should sell our house right now, but there's nothing to buy because nobody's listing their house, and that's why the prices are just so crazy. The buyer pool is choosing from such a small amount of sales that are available, listings that are available, that it's just driving the prices sky high.
All right, Heidi, great information as usual. Thank you very much for joining us for Handling Change.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Joe, and have an excellent weekend.
And thank you for joining us for Handling Change. Join us each week at 7:30 as we give you the tools to handle the changes in your life, and visit us at handlingchange.info. You can find Heidi on Facebook at MDM Realty and email her at mdmrealty@msn.com. And you can always call Heidi. Her cell number is 508-277-2032. For Heidi, I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti here, and I have recently purged and refreshed with new furniture and, most importantly, a new bed. We spend about a third of our life on our mattresses, and it's so vital we have the right one, and we don't break the bank to do that. I first bought a mattress from the big store the brothers used to own, and a power base that moved the head and feet, and then I met John, and I checked out his showroom at 50 Main Street in Ashland and online at boxdropmiddlesex.com, and ended up with a better mattress, a power base that also heats and massages, all for less than half of what I was going to spend at the other place. Boxdrop is a discount mattress store, and John specializes in clearance and closeouts, and he buys directly from the manufacturer with a low overhead and just family employees, passing the savings on to you, and you can see it reflected in the price every day. Click boxdropmiddlesex.com or call John on his cell. This is his cell number, 508-579-9303. That's 508-579-9303. And you can find John on Facebook at Boxdrop Middlesex. John loves referrals, and this is the best referral I've given so far this year. Dropboxmiddlesex.com.
To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Joe Mangiacotti.
All right, folks, welcome back to the final segment of the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Boxdrop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000. Our text line is available at 617-297-8388. We're live streaming on the TuneIn app, but also on our Facebook page, the show Facebook page at Joe Mangi Show. That's also how you find us on all of our social media platforms, Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, Show. Easy to do, real easy to do. Our guest is Dr. Larry Fedowa. And Dr. Larry, you were setting it up that, I absolutely 100% agree that we have these incredible wealthy, and it doesn't even, being rich doesn't even start to describe the level of wealth that some of these people have, right? We've got the big tech executives, the Jeff Bezos of the world, who make more money or lose more money in one day than most of us make in a lifetime, or certainly in a year. So they go off and pick this up from where you were, because people have been asking, I've been asking, what is the end game with this lockdowns, endless lockdowns? Kids aren't back in school. Get vaccinated, but you still have to wear a mask. Joe Biden's been vaccinated, and he's wearing 2 masks. You got Ted Cruz out there, who he's vaccinated, his wife is, his family is. I don't know if you caught the reporter asking him to put a mask on. He says, no, I'm not going to put a mask on while I'm speaking at a press conference, plus I've been vaccinated. She says, I'm uncomfortable. He said, there's the door. I loved it. And then we saw Dr. Fauci, who is the highest paid government employee, by the way. He makes more than the president of the United States, highest paid federal employee, and he controls so much in the whole, the medical behind the scenes in for the government, right? In the virus and virology. And he gets into it with Representative Jordan the other day, who's putting it to him and saying, hey, when is it? So now pick it up, or reset it up and pick it up to how you think the pandemic has played into this scenario that you laid up for us before the break.
I think it was a convenient way for the what I call the unholy alliance to begin to assert their power. And I think what happened was that one of their number, named Donald Trump, who was supposed to be part of their unholy alliance, instead decided to take them on and go and fight them. And they responded with the first response was a hate campaign against him, in which they employed all of their press assets, which are about 80 to 90% of the American scene, and then they basically set up the stage for a stolen election by getting their digital company involved in 26 states, I believe it was, and then conveniently along comes this pandemic, which at first they including Fauci, they downplayed it because generally speaking, there's never been any other response to a pandemic, epidemic, or whatever you would want to call it in the history of the world, in which the entire society was told to stay home and not to go to work, and of course it didn't work out 100%, but nevertheless,
in essence, we were under house arrest.
Pretty darn effective. So why? And so and to his, I guess you would say, it was the basic idea was not the lockdown initially. Initially, it was downplaying it, but then the unholy alliance saw that with their boys in the catbird seat of NIH, and that was particularly led by Tony Fauci, that they had a tremendous opportunity. And the opportunity was, and I think that the opportunity was started to realize when Trump they came to Trump with the idea of a lockdown. He agreed to it for 2 weeks, but in those 2 weeks they saw the potential of taking over the American society by essentially stripping it of all its work and all its activity, and through Tony, they basically were able to achieve that. And when the governors got involved, it was pretty. By that time, it was a pretty clear concept that if we continue to do this, we weaken the whole base of the Trump phenomenon, because all the people that he provided jobs for now can't work, and there's going to be a lot of unrest, and we can then have the climate by which we can steal the election, and they did that, and Trump saw it. He kept talking about all summer about the mail-in votes and how these things were being manipulated, but by this time nobody was listening, and they did win. And the fact now is they're very close to taking over the country, and is there, if you were to just talk about the effectiveness of their strategies so far, you would say that we're doomed right now, because all of the characters are almost in place.
Yep.
I personally don't believe that, because I think that there's some countervailing forces in American culture of freedom and individual opportunity and so on. But that's another question.
Doctor, let me back up for a second, because I just want to be
where we are now.
All right, I want to be clear on something. Do you think that the pandemic was for them a happy coincidence, happenstance, or do you think that it was in fact purposely released, or it was truly an accident? I don't believe for a moment I'm okay with it. I don't think this is a horrible thing. Of course, Facebook and Twitter wouldn't let me post this, but I think that for whatever reason, it got out of hand. And don't forget that America was funding the Wuhan laboratory, by the way, and Fauci, over a decade ago, he was saying that this type of research with the bats and stuff was necessary, was dangerous but necessary. So there's a connection there. But nonetheless, scientists are still just humans.
More than that, Joe.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't going to. Let's go into that in a minute because I want to finish setting up that. So I believe that it got out of that lab, but we'll talk about all that in a minute. So do you think that this was released purposely, or do you think that this happened and they realized, hey, we can use this right now and do these lockdowns, make everybody wear these masks? And Fauci, by the way, lost all credibility as a scientist, in my opinion, when he came out and said, you don't have to wear a mask, then later admitted he was just manipulating us because he didn't want us to buy them all up. So, all right, so you're not speaking as a scientist, you're a politician, and you'll say what you need to say. So now they've used, so the virus comes along, which we place everybody basically under house arrest, and we quarantine healthy people, which is kind of the opposite of what you do when you quarantine somebody, and cause this disruption for a virus with a 99.99% survival rate. And we know very quickly that it has no effect on children, and unless you are elder or have certain conditions, you're okay. You're going to survive this. Who decided? At what point was this decided? This is a good cover for us to. First of all, I agree they wanted to ruin the Trump phenomenon. We had incredible unemployment. The economy was going, and he was telling us at the end of last year, wait till you see what happens. And look what's happening. The stock market's going crazy. The whole economy is just rumbling under the surface, right? All we have to do is we don't have to spend a dime on stimulus money, doctor. Just let businesses open. Just let businesses be businesses, and it will go crazy. Now we have programs where it's more economically advantageous to stay home than go back to work. You make more money with these unemployment bonuses and so forth. And you've got businesses closing, not because of the pandemic, not because they can't be open. It's because they can't find the help to actually work in the business anymore.
Well, the answer to your first question is, I think that I don't think it was pre-planned. I think it was something that
happy coincidence
came along, and they began, and they didn't realize the potential immediately. I think that at first they were against Trump, and they thought that Trump was going to be the guy that hung his hat on the wrong tree, and that. And in a sense, he did, but I think they began to realize the potential when around the end of April and into May of last year, and that's when they really took over the leadership of. It was when the governors really got deeply involved, because until then, I don't think that anybody really realized that this whole thing was potentially a stalking horse for a world domination. And I think that the other unanswered question in this whole scenario is, what is the relationship between the Chinese and our crowd that are trying to take over? If you look at the commercial relationships between big business, particularly the digital businesses, Apple and so on, and some of the car companies and sports and so on. If you look at the commercial ties between some of the biggest industries in the United States and China, you begin to wonder if this whole thing isn't even bigger than I thought it was. I thought of it as a way of taking over the United States. But if you start thinking about maybe there is a relationship, since these guys all seem to have such a deep involvement with the Chinese, it may actually be bigger than that. It may be a international cabal. I don't know that part. It remains to be explored a little bit more, but I think we're in very perilous waters here, and I think if we cannot, if HR 1 follows, if it is allowed to stand, and we could never have another free election in the United States history, because one more time of a let's say a 4-year period in addition to the 2 years now that we have these guys in control. I don't think I think it would be like pre-war Britain. We would not really have another chance.
Well, I think that if you go back to 2015, going to the 2016 election, that the country was headed at a much slower pace, right, at this direction. And Donald Trump wasn't supposed to happen. And he did happen, and I think he was aware of a lot of things that he couldn't share with us. And if you kind of listen to him, because he says things, and how many things has he kind of said, and, from everything from, they were wiretapping me, and everybody laughed at him. Nobody wiretaps anyone. I mean, that's what they focus on, right, the semantics of it. But it turns out they were spying on him. So this happened through the entire 4 years he was in office, but say a 5 to 6 year period now, before he got elected and so forth. And I think that the election of Donald Trump, which was not supposed to happen, and I think the only reason it happened is because they honestly didn't believe, right, because they just don't get it. They totally underestimate the average citizen. They don't get his support. They still don't understand his popularity. They still don't understand why he won. They really think that it had to be Russian interference. It was anything but the fact that Hillary Clinton was a horrible candidate and a horrible person. It just doesn't compute to them. So it's an anomaly to him. He's always been, to them, an illegitimate president. He didn't deserve it. He didn't really win. And I think that's when it was decided, come hell or high water, he cannot get reelected. And, yeah, I don't think that it was released, but like you, at some point they said this is an opportunity to change the rules, and under the guise of locking everything down for really no reason, the science didn't dictate it, and then we saw election laws changed, not changed, Dr. Larry, through the the legal process or the way it's done, right? The state legislatures, that's where that power rests. But they were done by governors and secretary of states. They just changed the number of voting days and how long ballots can be accepted after election day. And mass mailing, which is the most asinine concept of voting that you can come up with, right next to drop boxes that are unsecured. So all of these things combined, to me, gave a license to orchestrate what we saw happen. And that's what they took advantage of, right? Because they could not allow him to be president again for another 4 years. Because how far would that have set their plans back? And now everything's kind of at an accelerated rate, right? And now they know there's a pretty good chance that they'll lose the House in 2022. But if they can change the laws before then, if they can get the court packed before then, so that any challenges are just handled by their activist judges. Meanwhile, we have the states, other states now, who want to put some integrity into their voting laws. And the voting is supposed to be at the state level, Doctor, right? Federal government shouldn't even be talking about being involved with local elections. As a matter of fact, if you go back and remember, Barack Obama said elections can't be hacked. They're local. Because we don't have one big election, we have 50 little elections.
Yeah, it's in the Constitution.
But they want to change that.
Oh, yeah.
Change it.
That's what H.R. 1's all about.
Exactly. Which also, see, to me, Doc, this connects to the whole issue, because we went from defunding the police to eliminating, abolishing. And the police right now are still as local as you can get. It's your town select board. It's your city councilors, right? Through them, they hire the police chiefs and the mayor and the city managers. And look what happened to the city manager and the police chief in Brookline Heights. The city manager, for refusing to condemn Officer Potter and to say she's a horrible person who doesn't deserve to have a job, like wouldn't do it. He said, look, there's a due process. And every employee of this city is entitled to the due process. The BCA, this is our process. BCA takes over the investigation. The chief isn't even involved in it. As a matter of fact, he should not have even seen the body cam footage. And for saying nothing more than due process is going to take place, he's gone. Then the chief of 27 years in the department, 5 years as chief, he's gone. He called the demonstration a riot. That's a cardinal sin. So I think that they don't like the idea that policing and police officers are still really a very local authority, and they can't control, especially when you've got sheriffs and chiefs coming out saying, I'm not enforcing that law on my citizens. I'm not doing the mass thing. I'm not disarming them. Oh, no, that doesn't work for us. So I think this, policing as we know it doesn't work is all the way to eventually nationalize the whole police department, all police departments. You see what I'm saying? Get rid of the local police, get rid of local elections, everything becomes the central bureau, handles everything. But we're running against the clock. Sorry about that. We always lose time and track of time. Dr. Larry, your final thoughts before we go to pull the plug?
My hope is that I think in the DNA of every American is fundamentally a desire for freedom. And when these guys start telling Americans what to do in a personal way, which is starting to happen already, I think that they're going to step over the line, and that's going to save them.
There you go. Out of time. Dr. Larry, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. We might have to start having you back more than once a month. From the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios, I'm Joe Mangiacotti.